Welcome to the Hustle Faithfully podcast, where determination meets devotion.
Follow us across all streaming platforms at www.hustlefaithfully.com. Last week, we began the series of Condemning Statements. Little did we know that it would turn into a multi-part series, but we ended talking about being fertile ground. Fertile ground for those that you love, that you care about, just people that you know in general. So, Ricardo, let me ask you, how do you become fertile ground for those around you? What exactly does that mean?
Well, the one thing I'll say is that we're going to be, and I want this as a clarifying statement, we're going to be fertile ground no matter what. It's just whether you're fertile good or fertile bad, because you're going to produce out of the ground that you are. Either way, you know, it's the two sides of the same coin. So are you fertile ground that prospers people in your life, or fertile ground where people flourish, or are you the type of fertile ground that produces thorns and thistles? You know, the type of thing that choke out seed. You know, that's the thing that you have to be able to recognize in your own life, whether the people around you are being choked out, their dreams, their hopes, their ideas, their ability to love, because you haven't loved them effectively. You know, they're losing hope to love, or the desire to love. There's so many different things that can happen in a relationship whether it's romantic or business, where there's not an awareness of the type of soil you are. You know, because you can see some things that are prospering, but not recognizing the vines that are growing up around the trunk of the tree that will eventually choke out the tree itself. So there's a certain amount of work that has to be done when it comes to self-awareness and maintenance that you have to do, and it's hard work. It's painful work, but it's necessary if not only you're going to prosper, but the people around you prosper, because the more they prosper, the more you prosper.
Right.
You know, I don't even know if that answered the question.
Well, it's kind of like kudzu. You know, kudzu can be a great barrier between locations, but if you don't take care of that kudzu and you don't maintain it, it's going to eat up everything that's around it as well. Yeah. And that's just like being fertile ground. Are you fertile in the way that you are maintaining the ground that you are sowing for other people?
Right.
Or is it just a brush fire? Is it just growing all over and you really have no control over it? Yeah. And like you said, this reminded me of a previous episode that we've done where you were talking about dream killers and dream carriers. Yeah. And that goes with fertile ground as well. Yeah. Are you a dream carrier for those that are around you? Are you a dream killer? There's plenty enough people in all of our lives that are dream killers. Unfortunately, there's more of those than dream carriers. I find that people online, people on social media, a lot of times they'll believe in you faster, stronger, and deeper than those that know you. Than those that know your abilities or that know what you're capable of. The people that don't know, they don't have that wall up. Yeah. And, you know, like right now in my life, I am going through a complete rebranding of myself as a whole. And it's interesting to see some people online that they're encouraging, even on this podcast, the people that we have been recording on the Tuesday morning Burnout and Breakthrough series. Every one of them are encouraging for us. Yeah. We have interviewed people that have huge podcasts that have been doing this far longer than you and I have, that have hundreds or thousands of episodes that, I mean, it's incredible that they are coming on to our new podcast. Yeah. Yet, what do they all say? Keep it up. Keep going. Yeah. Don't stop.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. And I have a couple answers in my head, but why do you think that is? What are some reasons that you think those that aren't as intimately aware of you and your life, your person, will support you more than the ones who you feel should, that are closer to you, that know you more intimately?
Well, I think it's multifaceted, really. I think that part of it with the people that are close to you, a lot of times they care, and their fear really does come from them caring. It's just the way that they project it. It's like, you know how to do this. Like with the 20-year business I've had, you know how to do this. You know how to make money with that. Don't leave it. You also don't know what that does physically to my body. You don't, you're not experiencing that. So it's like, stick with what you know. Yet sometimes you need to rebrand and change things. I think that part of the reason that the people that don't know you so well support you is because everybody wants to see somebody succeed. I do have the firm belief that there's way more people that want to see you succeed than want to see you fail. For every one person that wants to see you fail, there's 10 that want to see you succeed. And I think a lot of that has to do with them living vicariously through you. Oh my gosh, look at this person going for their dreams. I couldn't do that, but let me live through them. Let me watch their life unfold on social media. And then I could pretend to do that. Here's the thing. I used to not put up my life on social media. I was very adamant about not really letting people see the insides of my life. Until I had multiple people, my campus pastor was one of them, tell me, no, live it out, let people see it. I had a real hard time with it. I still do at times. There are still times where it's like, I don't want people to see this. Yet, here's the thing. I also have a mentor that was telling me the exact same thing at the exact same time that my campus pastor was telling me that. And this mentor and my campus pastor, I guarantee you, they've never talked in their life. They come from two completely different sides of the track, so to speak. They're not talking yet. Within 2 days of each other, they told me almost the exact same thing verbatim. And here's the thing. People want to see other people enjoying their life. Now, some people will see it and get angry, get jealous, get whatever. Some people see it and it inspires them. And when I realized, when I turned that switch to say, you know what, this is not about look at what we're doing in life. This is not about look at the trips we're taking. This is not about look at our amazing family. What it is about is look at this. Let it be an inspiration. If I can achieve it, you can. Yeah. And I really think that that's a lot of the reason. It's with the people that are close to you, it's love and fear based. And I know for me personally, especially with this rebranding of myself that I'm doing, there's so much fear in it that I don't care who you are. If you're not supporting me, I don't want your input, period. Yeah. Because I have enough stuff running in my mind. I don't need your negativity. I don't care how close I am, who you are, my love for you. If you are not completely positive, don't talk to me. Because I cannot, I have to deal with my own stuff. I don't need your stuff on top of it. And again, the people that don't know you so well, they're living vicariously through you. And that's the big thing, is to lead by example. Let them see that it is possible. Now, I had a conversation with somebody last Wednesday, as a matter of fact, and something was said about making money. And I told her, I said, I'm of that belief that if you want to make more money and you want to make a lot of money just to look at somebody else and say, ha, my stack's bigger than yours is, stay broke. Stay broke. Yet if it's a thing of let me go make more, because with more, I can do more. I can be more of a blessing to other people. Sky's the limit. Go. And it's just keep pushing, and find those that do believe in you. What would your answer be? You said you have a few answers going through your head.
Got some different things that have jumped around in my mind. One is with the people closest to you. They're the ones that's able to see that your soil has a smell to it. people that are farmers, there's people that will watch this video, this episode, that are farmers, and they know sometimes, you know, the thing that causes your crop to grow the best may be the funkiest thing that you use.
That's right.
It may be chicken manure, you know, that it stinks. But growth and fertile ground sometimes require a stinky mixture.
Right.
In order for that to happen, growth comes out of that fertile ground, but the fertile ground is only fertile because sometimes the stinky stuff that has to happen in order for that soil to be fertile doesn't happen by accident.
Mm-hmm.
It happens intentionally. There's something you have to do. It didn't just show up there. You have to place it there. You have to mix it up. There's some things you got to do in order for that to take place, in order for what you have in the ground to grow. In your own personal life, there's all kinds of things that you're having to do intentionally. Things you're having to workshops, you're having to go to relationships, you're having to build networks you're growing. Sometimes walking away from something that other people think you should stay in.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you realize that place is tapped out. You need new soil. You need a new place to grow. You know, there's all these things going on, and people see the messiness of your life. This is the mixing, the things you're doing to till your soil, and they smell the funkiness of this mixture, the
right.
stuff you're having to do. The people that are watching you from a distance, they see some of the fruit. They see some of the work you're doing. They hear you talk about farming. They hear you talk about growing. They hear you talk about these things, but they're not there and to smell the stench of your growth. Because sometimes there's like I said, there's a stinky mess that has to be present
mm-hmm.
in order for that to happen. And some people that are close to you are like, you know, this is a mess right here. You know, I hear what you're saying, but I smell this mess. I see all this dirt and stuff that's scattered everywhere, and it doesn't seem to make sense. But you know that out of all this chaos, of everything that seems to not make sense, you know that there's massive growth and productivity that's coming out of this because I'm doing the work right now.
Mm-hmm.
You may not see it right now. You may not. All you see is you see the work I'm doing. You see the mess that I seem to be making, but you don't see what's happening underground because I've created space for the things I want to grow.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody had to do the work. And in my life, it's going to be me, you know? And sometimes the people that's closest don't recognize it because it's out. They love you. Like you said, they love you and they want the best for you. They don't want you to get dirty while you're right. You know? But guess what? Some things require me to get dirty,
mm-hmm.
you know? And you're going to have to be okay with me getting dirty. Love me, you know? But don't love me where I am. Love me. When I say don't love me where I am, I mean, don't love me if you see me in a place that seems to be broken. Don't just simply say, hey, this is where you are. You can't do anymore. You won't go any further. So when I say love me don't love me where I am. Don't simply love me in the low place that you see me in, as if this is the only place where you recognize me. This is the only place where you know me. And you don't see me being able to do more, do greater, do better. In your mind, this is where I am. This is where I should stay. This is what I should do. No, love all that God has placed in me. When I say love all that God has placed in me, you believe in me. When I begin to speak better, love that too. Believe that too. Don't hear me talk better and say, oh, you'll never do that. You can't do that. You've only done this, John. How are you going to be able to do that? You've only done this, Ricardo. How are you going to be able to do that? I've never seen you do that.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make sense. That's stupid. Why are you walking away from this? You're simply loving me where I am, but I know there's greater. God has shown me greater. So you won't support that. You'll support this where I am, but when I begin to break away from it, that messy transition from this to that, it causes tension with you because you're like, I'm afraid that won't work for you, and I love you too much to watch you fail. But you're in your mind, my growth is failure because it's messy. So that's that whole process of people recognizing you here. Like Jesus in the Bible said, he could only do so many miracles. There was only a few miracles he could do in Nazareth because their memory of him. But isn't that Joseph's boy? Isn't that Mary's boy? Not Jesus, the Savior, but Joseph's son, the carpenter.
Mm-hmm.
You know. So yeah, he could fix my house, but he can't do anything to fix my life.
Right.
You know, so they remember him where he was, not where he was going and what he was going to be able to do. So sometimes people in your life will look at you that way. Isn't that Jonathan? Ellis, wasn't he pressure washing? How's he doing this? Isn't that Ricardo, wasn't he doing electrical work and all these things? How's he going to do this? You know? And so those people look at you and say, that doesn't make sense.
Right.
So that's kind of the thought that was in my head. It's just people sometimes can be so familiar with you that they can't unsee you in the last place that they saw you. But the people that's not familiar, they can see you in the place that they've never known you, never seen you, because they don't know that to be familiar with you in this other place. You know, so they're disconnected, so they're able to believe with you. But I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely, it does.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, how do we look at this in beyond a business standpoint? How do we look at it in like a relationship, a personal relationship, your spouse, your kids, things of that nature? How do you create the fertile ground for your family?
Right. Well, that's probably the hardest thing to do, because if you are, let's just say with our wives, if you're in a relationship and if you know you're in a place where you have things that need to change, because there's known and unknown things that have to happen in each of us to be the husbands that we're supposed to be. The issue is the known things are difficult to do because maybe we hadn't ever had to look in the mirror of our wife and face these things, you know, that we have not done, that we have yet to do. But then there are some things that we don't know, so we don't know to do them. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, like right now, if you have something that's an irritant to you, you don't want to sprinkle salt in an open wound because it agitates it. It's an irritant, so you want to move away from it. But sometimes the things that are the greatest irritant will produce the most valuable jewel. You know, an example of the oyster and the pearl. The oyster is formed where there's irritation in the oyster from sand that gets in. And each time sand gets in, it forms this layer around it. More sand comes in, more irritation, it forms this covering around it. And it keeps happening. It grows and grows and grows. Well, they harvest that oyster. They're not harvesting the sand. They're harvesting what was produced out of the agitation or the irritation. Mm-hmm. You know, so there's things in our life and in our marriages sometimes that were meant to agitate us so that we could grow and produce out of it something far greater than the agitant that went into it. But we move away from the agitation sometimes because we think it's unnecessary. And because we think it's unnecessary, we don't stay in it long enough for it to have its perfect work, as it says in James. These trials and tribulations, these things we go through, we move away from it. And it creates a cycle of I'm in it, out. I'm in it, I'm out. And I don't stay in it long enough for it to produce what it's supposed to. You know, you get glimpses of this value that's supposed to come out of this thing, but you don't see the fullness of what it's supposed to be. Like a pearl that's irregular, it doesn't have the same value as one that's beautifully formed and shaped, that's been able to stay and persist and produce in the way that it needs to. It's been shaped and formed the way it's supposed to. You got ones that are irregular that has the qualities of those, but it didn't quite wouldn't quite shape the way it's supposed to. You know, maybe it's premature, like a baby being born premature. There's some deficiencies there. There can be things that are supposed to be produced in our lives that are produced or born prematurely or never happen at all, like a dream that's stillborn. You know, like these things happen in our lives where we don't have and that's why as a believer it's so important for me to consult with God and not tell God what I want to do and then have him get on board. Because there's some things, I was talking about known and unknown things. The unknown things typically are the things that get you, because you know it's not the things you know, it's the things you don't know that typically will trip you up. So there's unnecessary things that we go through that we ourselves create that cause chaos in our life. Then there's some necessary things that we have to go through, and we can miss which is which. I can want to run away from a thing that's actually an agitation that's supposed to happen, that's supposed to make me better. Right. And then I can persist and stay in something and try to work on something that's actually an agitation that's not even supposed to be here. I created this tension. So there's a lack of self-awareness. So you're not fertile ground when you're not self-aware of what needs to happen in order for you to produce out of this life and out of this relationship what's supposed to be produced, because you end up putting something into the ground that's not supposed to be there. You end up fertilizing the ground with something that you shouldn't use, you end up growing something in a season that is not the season for it. You know, the right seed, wrong season. You know, so there's a certain amount of awareness that we have to have in a romantic relationship, because that person is going through that same process. All these things I said was just my own process. What about the other person that has that same? They're going through that same process of growing and figuring out when to do and when not to do, on what to fix and what not to fix, what's an agitation that's necessary, what's one that's not. We're both going through this. We're both changing at the same time. And it's like, I fell in love with this person, but I have to fall in love with each person that they become as they grow, with the expectation that they're going to grow. So if I fall in love with this person where they are, but unwilling to fall in love with the person as they grow, then we end up misaligned in a way where I'll say something stupid like, "You've changed." I'm supposed to.
Right.
You know, so man, that thing's so multifaceted. I'm saying this because this is my life. You know, this is like, this stuff that I'm saying, this is real life, real time for me.
Right.
You know, where I'm in the midst of this process myself now, where I'm recognizing my own frailties, my own need for growth, while having to give grace to someone who I'm watching grow. And so while I'm wanting my wife to get to know me, she's getting to know a moving target, because I'm getting to know who I actually am as her husband, and growing into the person I'm supposed to be. So I'm learning me while trying to get her to learn me, while trying to get to know her. She's changing, I'm changing. And so we're both trying to get to know moving targets. There needs to be a lot more grace there than not, because there's an understanding that the soil needs more tilling. I need to be more aware of what's happening, so I know what to do and when to do it. So when I sow this thing in the ground, I'm sowing it in the right season and it produces the right way.
So how do you get to, number one, be self-aware, but how do you hit that moving target, so to speak? You said that it's a moving target because you're both growing, you're both changing, which everybody is at all times. How do you shoot for it when it's moving all the time?
The greatest way that I find, even right now, to be able to do it is, well, first you admit that I'm missing the target. Like, if you think you're hitting the target, you don't know to do anything different. In your mind, I'm giving this person everything, and I'm doing everything in this business or in this relationship I'm supposed to do. They're the problem, and they're sitting here saying you're missing me every time. You know, you think you're on point, because on your end, the things that you know and the things you see, they seem to hit fertile ground, but they're just not willing to receive your love. They're not willing to receive what you're doing. They don't, you know, all these different things that we can do to convince ourselves that we are actually doing the right things, rather than recognizing that if I'm aiming at a target and I walk over there to the target, like someone who's shooting an arrow. If you aim at it and you shoot and you hit it, when you walk over there to it, you should see the arrow in the target. You can't walk over there to the target and say, well, I hit that target. It must have moved, you know, because my aim was true. I was straight on. The target had to move. No, you were off. You thought you were on. It's that it could be that same way in a relationship where there's not an awareness that, and it comes from you being able to be humble enough to be able to hear from someone that, hey, you're missing me. Like, we're not on the same page. And to be able to hear constructive criticism in that moment where it's like, what you're giving me right now, what you're doing right now works for you, but it didn't work for me. And because it doesn't work for me, it shouldn't work for you, because it doesn't work for us, because we're in partnership, you know? And that part of it is gathering information about the target you're aiming at, to make sure that when you're aiming at that target, that you're aiming in the right way, not in the right direction, with the expectation that they're moving. So you're not aiming where they were, you're aiming because you communicate where they're going. I know where you're heading, so I know how to lead you. So when I lead you, when my arrow gets to where it needs to be and the target arrives at a certain place, we're in the same place, because there's communication. So I know what's happening. I know the progression. I know what's going on. So I'm not looking at you to be in an old place. I'm looking at you to be in this place because we communicate and I aim accordingly.
So if you are providing fertile ground in your relationship, and there's that moving target, with providing the fertile ground, does that make the target more stationary? Does it make it where it's not such a moving target, or does it remain moving?
It's going to move, but the thing is, because I know where to expect it. It's like when you're at sea, the boat's moving, but you can be on that boat in a place and in a position where you can't necessarily tell that you're at sea, that you're moving. Because of like you can be positioned in such a way, and the boat can be balanced in such a way and move in such a way that you don't necessarily know that you're not in the place where you started. You're in a completely different place. You can be in such a place in relationship in your communication. You can be you can be in a place where y'all have come together in such a way that even while moving, you all are moving in such a rhythm that because you all stay connected while you're moving, there's not this sense of moving in the same way. Like if I'm sitting still in a car, all of a sudden starts to move. Have you ever sat in a car and stationary, and all of a sudden a car moves beside you, and there's this momentary feeling like as if you're moving.
That you're moving, yeah.
Well, but you don't get that same feeling when you're actually in the car that's moving. It's not the same feeling because one car is moving and you're not. Right. So there's this momentary feeling of things moving and things being off balance. But when you're in the actual car that's moving, it's not the same, but it's still the same movement. So when you're in that relationship where both of y'all on the same page, y'all communicating, you understand what's going on, they understand what's going on. Even if I don't agree with what's going on, I understand what's going on. So I know how to engage it, or I know how to respond when this thing happens that typically we'll have a disagreement about. But now, even if I don't agree with what's going on or how it's going on, I know how to respond because I got an understanding, even if I don't have agreement. So we're in a position now where when there's movement, I don't have this sense of instability. Well, like I was talking about with the car that suddenly moves because I'm moving too. So I think that comes down to how we communicate and the willingness to communicate, and then to be honest with yourself about whether you are actually effectively communicating with that person and then effectively hearing and receiving that person and reciprocating in kind according to what they're telling you, what they have a need of, and then how you're serving, and whether it's in a romantic relationship or in business, am I willing to outserve?
Willing to outserve, that's an interesting concept. Because you hear marriage is 50-50, which is the biggest pile of crap there ever was. When you come into it with, how can I serve you? Don't even be concerned about you serving, because that's when the law of reciprocity kicks in. You give to your spouse. You keep giving. There's going to come that point where they're going to want to outgive you. And it's not a tick for tack. It's not a competition. It's just the way that it kind of happens. But yet when you come in and say, hey, you know what? I'm the head of this household. Bow to me, as an extreme example, obviously. That's going to build resentment. But when you come in to serve, whether it's in a marriage, whether it's in a business partnership, whether it's in a friendship, whether it's you and your employees or you and your boss, whenever you serve and serve and serve, it will be reciprocated. That's one thing that I teach my kids with work. 2 of them are working now, and I let them know, work for the position that you want, not the position that you are in. My oldest son has moved up management positions. He's been on this job for just a couple months, and he's already working his way up through the ranks. And last night, my middle son was in the bedroom with my wife and myself, and he made the comment. He said, Noah works too hard for what he's paid for. And I said, no, Jack, he doesn't. He knows where he wants to go. So he's working as though he already has that. He's not being paid for it. But guess what? His pay keeps increasing. And that's the same way with everything else, is creating that fertile ground. He's creating the fertile ground where he works. And that's why that ground is getting more and more fertile. He keeps tilling the land and he keeps growing. So it's the same, whether it's business, whether it's life, whether it's personal, no matter what the situation is, when you create the fertile ground, your life will grow.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that everything's always going to be easy.
Yeah.
There are times where it's very challenging, where you have to keep pushing, where you feel like you're being buried under the ground that you're tilling up.
Right.
But when you keep pushing and you keep that fertile ground going, and whether it's you're 100% today and you're 100% tomorrow may be completely different, but just keep giving it your all. Keep tilling and keep sowing into that fertile ground, and it will come back and produce the fruit that you're looking to have produce.
Yeah. And the thing about the sowing and the reaping is to make sure your expectations are in the right place. Like when I sow a seed, I don't expect to get a seed out the other side. Now, the things you get, like if I get a fruit, let's say I got an apple, I put an apple seed in the ground and I get an apple. There is an expectation that there's seed in the apple, but I'm not picking the apple off the tree for the seed. I'm picking the apple off the tree for the apple itself, the fruit. But when I put a seed in the ground, I'm not looking to get a seed back.
Right.
So, and I say this because sometimes we can serve people in a certain way. You want them to serve us back the same way. That may not be in them to serve you back the same way.
Right.
So you can't serve them with the expectation that they're going to give you back the same thing that you sowed. You put the apple seed in the ground, they may actually give you an apple. So you have to expect to get something that doesn't look like the thing that you put in the ground. But there's an expectation that at some point it'll come back. It may not even come back from them. It may be someone else that serves you that repays what you did when you served them unselfishly. Because the idea is when you're serving is not necessarily to serve just because of what you get back.
Right.
You're serving because it's been given to us to serve. And we are supposed to, as believers, to serve in the way that Christ served us. We're supposed to serve in that same way. And it will come back to us if we serve with the right heart. We serve with the right spirit, that we're doing so not because of what we can get, but what we can give. Because if I have room for God to pour abundantly into me, then I have room to receive what God wants to pour abundantly into me. But if I don't make room for it because I'm holding on to everything that I get, like me, my, if the opportunity comes for there to be more given to me, I don't have capacity for it.
That's right.
I don't have room for it. So I have to be willing to freely it's given to me, freely I give away, and freely it's given back to me. You know, so that's kind of the attitude that I have and that I want to have even more so when it comes to how I give, but making sure that I give with wisdom, not just simply out of the compulsion of my own heart. You know, because that's dangerous to do that.
Given it shall be given unto you, pressed down, shaken together, your cup will overflow. Maybe that's what we'll pick up with next week as we're out of time this week. But that actually brings up a very good point. Should you expect to receive when you give?
There is an expectation to receive, but not placing that on the person that you're serving, because you end up not serving them effectively or serving them with a good heart. Because maybe they can't return what you've sold into them.
Tune in with us next week as we discuss this more in depth of giving and receiving. And are you proper to expect a return on your giving? Whoever you're giving to, whatever you're giving to. Right. Is it okay to expect a return on that? Until next Thursday, remain blessed and unstoppable. We'll see you again next week.